Boeing 767 cruises high above the Atlantic Ocean on its way to Egypt. 217 people are on board. Just half an hour after takeoff, disaster strikes. The pilot and co-pilot struggle desperately for control of their aircraft. The lives of all on board will depend on these two pilots and what they do about this dive towards the ocean.
We're not getting any oxygen. We have the terrain alarm. Aero Peru 603. We are in an emergency.
The John F. Kennedy International Airport outside New York City is one of the busiest airports in the world. In 1999, nearly 32 million passengers fly in and out. More than 340,000 flights take off and land. EgyptAir Flight 990 is destined to be one of the most controversial ever to leave this airport. The fate of this flight challenges the strength of an international friendship between two allies and uncovers a hidden mechanical flaw in one of the world's most popular airliners. The FBI will become involved.
We reviewed surveillance tapes to indicate whether or not anything unusual was loaded on that plane.
Investigators in two countries developed two different theories. Was this a tragic accident or a terrible crime? Just after 1 a.m. on October the 31st, 1999, the 217 people on board EgyptAir Flight 990 are waiting for takeoff. The flight's command captain is Captain Ahmed El-Habashi. He's been with EgyptAir for 36 years. The command first officer is 36-year-old Adel Anwar. He switched duty with another co-pilot so he could return home in time for his wedding.
Soon be a married man.
Congratulations, Adel.
Thank you very much.
The airline's chief pilot for the Boeing 767, Captain Hatem Rushdie, joins them in the cockpit. At 1:20 in the morning, First Officer Adel Anwar is going through his takeoff clearance with air traffic control.
You fly the gateway climbing to 5,000.
Following gateway, clear for takeoff, runway 22 right, EgyptAir 990 heavy.
Cabin crew advised.
In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. Cabin crew, takeoff position.
After an everyday blessing, the co-pilot assists the takeoff. For safety, both pilots push the throttles. On a flight of 10 hours, it's standard practice at EgyptAir to provide a relief crew to share the flying duties. The command crew takes off and lands. The relief crew flies the middle portion. Tonight, Captain Raouf Nur el-Din and First Officer Gamil el-Batuti are the relief crew. They will take over after the first 3 or 4 hours and fly the plane until shortly before Cairo.
V1, rotate. Positive rate of climb, both sides. 1,000.
EgyptAir 990 heavy, contact, departure now, 125.7.
1257, bye.
A large number of passengers are senior citizens from the United States, looking forward to touring the wonders of ancient Egypt.
My dad and Ginny were married in 1998 on October 23rd. And to celebrate their first anniversary, they decided to take a trip to Egypt.
Anita Child's parents are retired and on their way to Egypt as well.
They always had great time on these tours. They traveled frequently, and so it was a pleasure trip they were looking forward to. Seeing the Holy Land especially.
Maureen Sacratini and her brother John Simmermeyer enjoyed the fact that their parents loved to travel.
They had been particularly fond of a program known as Elder Hostel, and this particular vacation trip to visit the pyramids and the other historical sites in Egypt was an Elder Hostel trip.
There are 14 of EgyptAir's experienced crew operating the flight. There are also 33 Egyptian military officers and pilots on board, returning after training with the American Armed Forces. Gamil El Batuti used to be an Egyptian Air Force flight instructor. He's now one of the oldest first officers at EgyptAir. He's so much older than the other co-pilots that out of respect they call him Captain. But some at EgyptAir think that Captain El Batuti has been coasting too long on the favors of old friends. Just over 20 minutes after takeoff, El Batuti is about to leave his seat. Former National Transportation Safety Board investigator Greg Phillips became an expert on the events of this flight.
The relief first officer, who would have been expected to come to the cockpit somewhere during the later part of the flight, halfway or wherever he was comfortable, wherever the normal change would have been, came into the cockpit about 20 minutes after takeoff.
Hello, Jimmy. How are you?
How are you, sir?
What's news?
I slept, I swear. Just wait. Let me tell you something. I'm not going to sleep at all. I might come sit for 2 hours and then...
I slept. I slept.
You mean you're not going to get up? You will get up. Go and take some rest and come back.
You should have told me this. You should have told me this, Captain Gamal. You should have said, Adele...
Did I even see you?
I will work first. Just leave me a message.
The younger first officer seems surprised that El Batuti wants to replace him so early in the flight.
And I'm not sleepy. So you take your time sleeping, and when you wake up, whenever you wake up, you come back, Captain, okay?
I'll come either way.
Captain.
Come and work the last few hours and that's all?
It's not like that. That's not the point. Look, if you want to sit here, there's no problem.
I'll come back to you. I'll go get something to eat and come back, all right?
Fine, fine. Look here. Why don't you go... Why don't they bring your dinner to you here, and then I'll go sleep, okay?
That's good.
Okay, with your permission, Captain.
And with that, El Batuti leaves to get his meal.
Do you see how he does whatever he pleases?
Do you know why that is?
Captain El Habashi senses his first officer's resentment and tries to smooth over the situation.
Are you a youngster?
Anwar wonders if El Batuti wants to take over because he may not want to work with Relief Captain Noor El-Din.
Doesn't he want to work with Raouf, or what?
It's possible, God knows. But look, you shouldn't get upset, right? By this prophet, he's just talking nonsense. That's it.
Everything's under control.
Okay, Chief.
Thanks a day.
First Officer Anwar concedes and is ready to hand over to El Batuti. Normally, this is the most relaxed, easy part of a long flight for pilots and passengers alike. The highly automated aircraft systems will take care of the flying for several hours.
It's very unusual for an airplane flying over the Atlantic at nighttime to encounter any kind of difficulties. We normally expect accidents to happen in approach or landing or near airports, and very seldom do we get anything out over the ocean in the middle of the night.
Excuse me, Jimmy, while I take a quick trip to the toilet.
Go ahead, please.
Before it gets crowded, while they're still eating, I'll be back to you.
Before the captain returns, disaster will strike EgyptAir Flight 990. The fate of everyone on board will be in the hands of the co-pilot, the man who shouldn't be here in the first place. On a Boeing 767 bound for Cairo, EgyptAir's Flight 990 appears to be cruising smoothly over the Atlantic. The relief first officer Gamil El Batuti is alone in the cockpit, while the captain has gone to the washroom. But then the plane dips, plunging down. The nose pitches down, creating zero-G, weightlessness, throughout the aircraft.
This airplane basically started at 1G, which is what we'd expect for level cruise flight. As you push the nose down, as if you would be cresting the top of a hill in a car at a high speed that drops away, you'd feel the airplane fall away from you. and you would start to feel a little light in the seat, and as the dive progressed, you would feel a little bit lighter yet.
I rely on God.
Whatever the first officer is intending, he says nothing except this phrase again and again. Captain El-Habashi fights the disorientation of zero gravity, desperately trying to return to the cockpit. An American journalist living in France studied this flight extensively.
16 seconds after the dive began, when the airplane had gone into zero G and into negative G and was at an extreme angle, the captain somehow made his way back into the cockpit. How he did that physically, I will never know.
Warning signals indicate the dive is exceeding the maximum speed allowed for the plane, taking them to 99% of the speed of sound. This far past the plane's design limits, the stresses on the airframe are pulling it apart.
What's happening?
Captain El-Habashi pulls back hard on his control column. Then he tries to use the engines to power their way out of the dive by pushing forward on the throttles, but he gets nothing.
What? You shut off the engines? Oh, God.
Desperate, the captain deploys the speed brakes, panels standing up from the wings, in an effort to slow the dive. The dive is slowing, back from the brink of the sound barrier. The dive goes on, but the nose is coming up. In just seconds, they go from 0 G to double the force of gravity. Captain El-Habashi struggles to level the plane and pulls back hard on the control column. The 767's dive begins to slow.
Who would be? You shut off the engine, Paul!
In seconds, the engines stop and the power goes off, plunging the aircraft into darkness. Here, the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder stop. No one knows what happened in the plane during the next 2 minutes, but radar tracks its path. The plane is climbing again. Up from about 5,000 meters to over 7,500 meters as the aircraft structure is weakened by the stresses of abnormal speeds and maneuvers. Then the aircraft falls into another terrifying dive. Stressed beyond endurance, the left engine is ripped from the plane.
EgyptAir 990, New York Center. EgyptAir 990, if you copy...
At 1:52 a.m., Flight 990 disappears from radar screens, crashing into the surface of the Atlantic Ocean, some 100 kilometers off the American coast. Coast Guard search and rescue get a call at 2:15 a.m. A plane has disappeared, and Coast Guard vessels are called to the scene. The U.S. merchant marine training vessel King's Pointer is first to arrive.
Just as the day was dawning, we noticed oil in the water. And that was the first indication, so we turned the ship around back into the oil, and about as soon as we turned around, we started seeing debris rise up to the surface.
In Heliopolis, a Cairo suburb, Captain El-Habashi's daughter can only guess what her father went through.
Can you imagine if you have a beloved one, a father, a daughter, or a brother, facing all the horrors of finding himself falling from 36,000 feet suddenly, trying to save his life, his colleagues' lives, the people, the passengers.
In a home in Maryland, a sleepy Sunday morning takes a tragic turn.
I had woken up for some reason at 5:30 in the morning, and we were flipping on the TV to check the weather, and we were deciding what mass we were going to be going to. It was Sunday. And immediately on CNN, they had Flight 990 missing, and I was in total shock. I ran down to my refrigerator where I had my parents' itinerary, and I ripped it off and just started sobbing uncontrollably. I was screaming. I didn't know what to do.
We located a significant debris field, and that we have concentrated our search efforts since then on about a 36 square mile of area, about 50 miles south of Nantucket.
At the end of October, the waters of the North Atlantic are so cold that normal life expectancy is about 5 to 6 hours. In Cairo, Relief Captain Raouf Nur el-Din's daughter May clung to hope for her father.
I was talking to myself, trying to convince myself that my father was not on this plane. And if he's on this plane, he will be safe, because my father was an Air Force pilot. He had a very good experience. And I thought maybe if the plane crashed, he will be able to, you know, to be in a safe place and to swim and to go to any land.
At the crash site, all that's left is pieces. Within hours, authorities know there's little hope for survivors.
We believe at this point that it is in everyone's best interest to no longer expect that we will find survivors in this case.
Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak reaches out to a stricken nation. This is the worst air crash in Egypt's history.
Really, I was shocked. It's a big tragedy for us. And I give my condolences to all the passengers, to the families of the crews who have been lost in this tragedy. And I have contact with President Clinton and other agencies. And he's giving good support for trying to find, investigate, see what was the reason.
The American president would answer his ally with a commitment.
And I spoke earlier with President Mubarak of Egypt today to express my condolences and assure him that we would be working together closely until this matter is resolved. We do not know what caused this tragedy.
In northern Indiana, music historian Jim Brokaw learned what happened to his father and stepmother.
One of the many things that I felt on that first horrible morning was the sense that people all over the world were confronting the same horrible circumstances that I was, and had the same sense of helplessness and disorientation that I did.
Shocked and grieving, relatives arrive at Newport, Rhode Island. They will seek answers and share comfort. There were 100 Americans, 89 Egyptians, 21 Canadians, and 7 victims of other nationalities on board. They're all asking, what caused this tragedy? Teams of investigators will pursue that question for years to come.
We are beginning what may be a long investigation, and we are prepared to do what it takes to find the answers to the questions we are seeking.
In Washington, Greg Phillips from the National Transportation Safety Board leads the investigation into this crash.
From the very beginning, we realized it was a very difficult case. The airplane was in cruise, nighttime, out over the ocean, and when it went into the ocean, there was just a little bit of floating debris, but we had to recover the airplane from the bottom of the ocean to begin the investigation.
The job of finding the black boxes would be difficult. The water is about 70 meters deep, and the tremendous force of the crash has smashed the locator beacons off the boxes.
In this case, both the underwater locators, which are called pingers, which help us locate the boxes underwater, were detached. So we had an extra difficult job in trying to find the actual boxes where the recording material was contained.
9 days after the crash, the US Navy's unmanned submarine Deep Drone recovers the first of the 2 black boxes, the flight data recorder, which stores information about what the aircraft and its systems were doing. 4 days later, the second black box, the cockpit voice recorder, lands on the deck and is carefully transported to the NTSB laboratories. The cockpit voice recorder captures all sounds in the cockpit for the last 30 minutes of the flight. The black boxes are protected to withstand impacts of 3,400 times the force of gravity. The recovery of the cockpit voice recorder provided a gripping and bewildering picture of the last minutes of a disaster. Here, investigators hope, is the key to unlock the mystery of Flight 990. Translating the Arabic spoken in the cockpit is a top priority at NTSB headquarters.
The cockpit voice recorder was good quality. It was easily usable and translatable by the investigation team. The cockpit voice recorder is always just a piece of the investigation that fits many other pieces of a puzzle. It goes along with the flight data, recorded data, examination of the wreckage, and all the other aspects of investigation.
On major investigations like the crash of EgyptAir 990, the NTSB works routinely with the FBI. The physical evidence has to be managed in case it's needed in court. Former FBI Assistant Director Lou Shaliro is a veteran investigator and no stranger to air crashes.
By the time EgyptAir occurred, we were fairly adept at looking at airline disasters, particularly with the view of developing whether or not a terrorist incident or a criminal act had occurred.
The FBI checked for evidence of bombs, terrorists, or terrorist targets on the flight.
Trying to determine luggage against the passenger list and whether or not there was anything unusual in the manifest, whether or not the people that loaded the plane could recall anything that would have caused them concern. We reviewed surveillance tapes to indicate whether or not anything unusual was loaded on that plane. We had no evidence at all of any explosive device on board EgyptAir that night.
At the NTSB, American investigators found no fault in the aircraft from studying the flight data recorder. But Egypt's members of the investigation team insisted that not all the evidence was in. Much of the wreckage was still in storage on Rhode Island. They hope the cause of the crash can be found here. Egypt's representatives search for any possible mechanical cause for the crash. While they search, other theories are pursued. A study into the causes of airline crashes published in January 2001 points to pilot error as the cause of 1/3 of these accidents. It also finds a strong connection between bad weather and pilot error. But the crash of EgyptAir 990 occurred in clear weather with veteran pilots. What happened in the cockpit would divide the investigation and fuel an international controversy. October 1999, EgyptAir Flight 990 crashes into the Atlantic Ocean, killing all 217 people on board. The investigation develops in two directions: fault in the airplane and pilot action. Rumors swirl about what or who may have caused this terrible crash. One of the key questions: why was the relief first officer in the cockpit hours earlier than expected? He was supposed to replace Adel Anwar much later in the flight. But in Cairo, Adel Anwar's older brother Tarak has no problem with Adel being replaced in the cockpit.
Suppose I am with one of my friends and we are traveling in a car and he asks me if he can drive instead of me. Is this going to be a problem? For example, if Adel didn't get enough sleep and Captain Jamil told him, "Let me fly the plane instead of you and you go rest," there is no problem with that.
When the actions in the cockpit are put together with the voices recorded, a timeline emerges that indicates a series of initially bewildering decisions.
I'll be back to you.
The timeline reveals that after Captain El Habashi leaves the cockpit, there's a series of sounds whose meaning can only be guessed at.
Control it.
And then the relief first officer disconnects the autopilot.
I rely on God.
Released from the autopilot's control, the plane starts to descend, rolling to the left. Egypt's experts described El Batuti's decision to shut off the autopilot as a possible reaction to an unusual movement of the aircraft, prompting him to take manual control. However, the leader of the NTSB investigation disagrees.
We found no reason for the autopilot to be disconnected by a fault or failure in the airplane.
Normally, all aircraft movements are meant to keep passengers comfortable, as though they were on the ground. After switching off the autopilot, El Batuti pushes his control column forward, lowering the elevator panels. So the flight data recorder indicates to the NTSB. Then he pulls the throttles back, reducing engine power. This causes the plane to dive. Egypt's investigators say El Batuti was not trying to crash the plane, and there may have been an elevator failure which he could not overcome. Strangely, there is no discussion of a problem on the cockpit tape. When the captain made his way back to the cockpit, he asked the first officer what was going on and never received a response. As former director of aviation safety, Bernard Loeb oversaw all air crash investigations at the NTSB.
It is well understood that in a cockpit, a jet transport cockpit of virtually any airline in the world, when a captain comes in and asks a question, the first officer will respond. When the captain asked his questions, Batuti did not respond.
Fighting the dive, pulling his column back all the way, the captain cannot gain complete control of the elevator, so he tries the throttles to power out of the dive. He was unaware that seconds earlier the first officer had shut off the fuel to the engines. Egypt's experts say that El Batuti may have been acting out of caution. The flight data show that a low oil pressure warning appeared. That can mean the engines have flamed out. The captain may have then ordered the fuel to the engines shut off as part of the procedure for restarting the engines.
Shut the engines! It's shut!
The NTSB consider this possible scenario as well.
The engines shut off on a two-engine airplane at night over the water. We couldn't understand any reason why any emergency could cause you to shut all the power off available to the airplane when you're heading away from the nearest airport.
Foremost among the Egyptian investigators' scenarios was a tragic elevator failure. In Washington, at the National Transportation Safety Board, analysis of the flight data recorder indicates that Captain El-Habashi was pulling back on his column to make the plane climb, while First Officer El Batuti appears to be pushing forward on his column, making the plane go down. Elevators work simply. Pull back on the column and the elevators go up, lifting the plane. Push forward and the elevator panels move down to make the plane descend. They work together, but in this case they're going in opposite directions. Egypt's experts argued that this crash could have been caused by a failure in the elevator assembly, producing an elevator hardover, a jam in the elevator controls which lock them in the down position, plunging the aircraft into an uncontrollable dive. They stated that First Officer El Batuti was working to regain control of the elevators, and added that he and Captain El-Habashi were working together. If there had been an elevator failure, it could explain the first officer's unusual performance in the cockpit.
Pull!
Supporting evidence is found when analyzing fragments of the wreckage in the hangar at Rhode Island. Here, investigators made a remarkable discovery: 3 unusually sheared rivets. These tiny parts play an important role in the Boeing 767 elevator assembly. Egypt's consulting experts determined that the scratches in the metal surfaces of these rivets showed that they were sheared off in 2 different directions. One direction could be attributed to the crash. The second could indicate that the break occurred before the crash, and so may have indicated a jam in the elevators. Egypt's experts drew this to the attention of the Federal Aviation Administration, America's civil aviation regulator. Alarmed by the potential risks, the FAA ordered all bell crank rivets to be inspected on every Boeing 767 in operation around the world. The inspections uncovered 136 sheared rivets, and 34 aircraft were grounded until the fault was fixed. The FAA said the problem could result in loss of controllability of the airplane. Egypt's investigators had uncovered a credible-sounding scenario, that the sheared rivets in the elevator assembly of the Boeing 767 indicated a jam that could have caused an elevator hardover that the pilots could not overcome. NTSB investigator Greg Phillips disagreed.
Those are by design for the Boeing 767. The controls can be split. They're designed that way in case one of the surfaces, the control surfaces, fails, so that whoever is still in control of the airplane or can control the airplane with a failed elevator.
Before he became an investigative writer, William Langewiesche was a commercial airline pilot. Flight 990's maneuvers are programmed into a flight simulator in order for Langewiesche to test a pilot's reactions.
To see an airplane going so wildly into a dive, to see the altimeters unwinding at that speed, to hear the horns and warning signals going off, is frightening.
Whatever the cause of the dive, Langewiesche tries a variety of responses to recover from it.
Finally, they asked me to wait at the extreme 15 seconds. To sit in a 767 or any airplane going out of control and do nothing for 15 seconds. 15 seconds is a long time. It's inconceivable. But I did it. And even at 15 seconds, even waiting 15 seconds, I was able, through no particular skill, really reacting almost as any student pilot would, to recover the airplane, recover from the dive, before the airplane exceeded its limits.
No Boeing 767 has suffered from an elevator hardover and dive before or since the crash. The aviation experts hired by Egypt developed a wide range of scenarios, citing a fault in the elevator assembly as a possible cause of the crash.
Based on the data, the information we have from the testing that was done as a group effort with all the best thinking everybody had at the time, we could not make this airplane do what it did with any of the failure scenarios that were presented to us.
While mechanical failure scenarios were exhausted and terrorism was excluded, the FBI continued to dig into the life of First Officer Gamil El Batuti. Less than 3 weeks after the disaster, news media report that in the final moments before the crash, El Batuti said, "I have made my decision. I put my faith in God," causing many to believe he might be an Islamic militant bent on destruction. But the translation was incorrect.
From our initial review of Batuti's background, he was a fairly religious person, but I don't think we had anything to determine that his religious beliefs were radical or beyond what would have been a normal religious person.
What had Batuti said? And what does it mean? Egyptian professor Amin Bonar teaches Arabic at Georgetown University in Washington.
Tawakkaltu means I depend, I rely, I trust, and Allah on, and Allah is God. Oh, tawakkaltu ala Allah, on God I rely, I depend in whatever I'm going to be embarking on. People use it when they start a trip, when they start driving, going back home, you say tawakkaltu ala Allah. When you have an exam, you begin by saying tawakkaltu ala Allah. It's a very positive phrase. So it's not the kind of phrase that anyone would be using before they commit a crime or before they commit suicide.
To say this common phrase once was normal, but El Batuti repeated it 11 times.
What's happening?
I expect that Captain Batuti would say, there is a fire in the engines, something stopped, I can see something's hitting the plane, anything like that. But he go on endlessly saying, Tawakkaltu ala Allah. This is not logic.
For the El Batuti family, their grief would be compounded by the need to defend their father's honor.
When he died, the one thing we had to reassure us was that he had died honorably. And now they're trying to take that away from us.
There is a lot of mechanical failures. Why you have only to say that it's a deliberate act, no mechanical, no weather, no mechanical, no weather. So why? Because he's an Egyptian pilot.
Chairman Jim Hall allowed that it could have been a criminal act rather than an accident. The investigation could end up in the hands of the FBI alone.
It is only prudent for the National Transportation Safety Board to consult with these experts and officials to fully evaluate this information prior to any final decision on whether the responsibility for this investigation should transfer to the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Egypt's President Hosni Mubarak, formerly commander of the Egyptian Air Force, had known Gamil el-Batuti, according to his nephew Walid. Mubarak asked President Bill Clinton to intercede to keep the crash from becoming an FBI matter. Since the crash, Walid el-Batuti, nephew of Gamil, has become the el-Batuti family spokesman.
You have to understand that the highest ranking in this country, which is the Egyptian president, was an Air Force pilot. And he was asked, and he says, according to my experience, it's in the tail unit. Something happened there. It's not suicide. It could be either a mechanical failure, a manufacturing failure, something.
In America, the FBI focuses on Gamil el-Batuti and the question of motive. The FBI would learn about the man in control of EgyptAir 990, interviewing colleagues and friends, discovering a dark side to Gamil el-Batuti. Investigating the cause of the crash of EgyptAir 990, the spotlight falls on the character and history of Relief First Officer Gamil el-Batuti.
He was 59 years old, approaching 60, had never risen above the rank of first officer. That may have caused him some animosity towards EgyptAir. Had some personal issues in his own life in terms of financial, some issues in terms of his family members being sick, needing medical attention.
They've used the daughter in the accusation as they said she was sick, and that's why maybe he committed suicide. Before we go to this, I will give you the reason. First, the doctors have already, on that particular flight, have already told them that your daughter is going positive with the medication and everything is going fine, and he was extremely happy. He was so excited to come back.
Gamil el-Batuti was bringing her medical records back that night, among other things.
Okay, he bought tires for his son, and an argument went on the phone between him and his son.
My father called me to come to the airport because he could not carry all 4 tires himself.
He says, listen, I carry your tires all the way from the States. You don't want to come and carry it from the airport? It's a very natural thing. A man is going to commit suicide. Why would he do this?
In New York, the FBI continued their investigation at the Hotel Pennsylvania, where EgyptAir had a block booking of about 50 rooms for their crews.
The investigation that the FBI was able to do as far as Batuti's background probably spanned a period of about a year or so, at least from the records that we were able to obtain and from the interviews we did at the various places that he stayed. So he did have, I think, a propensity to engage in behavior with some of the hotel people in terms of sexual misconduct.
Hey, pretty lady, where did you get to?
Which, you know, at the time really appeared to be totally out of the realm of what was normal for a person of that status to do.
A husband and father of 5, Gamil el-Batuti was notorious for leering at and bothering female guests and hotel staff.
Come to my room.
The FBI learned that 2 years before the crash, 2 young women reported that he called them on their hotel room phone, telling them to look out the window across the courtyard.
You have a good time too.
When they did, they saw el-Batuti exposing himself and reported the incident to hotel security. His provocative behavior would continue. A hotel maid told the FBI that the night before the crash of EgyptAir 990, el-Batuti had sexually harassed her again.
No, I want to talk to you because look, I give you $100 if you just come to my room.
I'm not here for that.
Oh, sure.
I'm here to work. Just leave me alone.
Nah, don't be like that.
When the maid reported the approach, Another addition was made to the hotel's record of sexual harassment of guests and staff by El Batuti.
The allegation of the hotel, as far as they said, it happened way before, not one day before the flight. Not one day before the flight, as has been mentioned.
The hotel maid told the FBI the incident took place on October the 29th, 1999, the day before the flight. 3 months after the FBI began investigating El Batuti, an EgyptAir flight landed in London. The plane's captain requested political asylum in the United Kingdom. He claimed to have information about the cause of the crash of EgyptAir 990, and he feared reprisals in Egypt. Captain Hamdi Taha was a colleague of Gamil El Batuti, and he was walking away from his wife, his family, and his country. The FBI sent a special agent, and along with a British security officer, he interviewed Captain Taha.
Were you aware of El Batuti displaying sexually inappropriate behavior?
Yes. This is very important. I heard it from pilots who I trust. Batuti got into trouble for sexual misbehavior in New York with maids and following women and so on. The airline tolerated this for a while, and they told him several times, maybe you can get away with this normally, but this is America. You represent our country. You cannot do these things.
Captain Taha's information was second-hand, but his description of El Batuti meeting with the airline's chief pilot was intriguing.
Khatem Rushdie went to see Batuti the night they took Flight 990. They had a meeting in the hotel. He told him that what he had done could not be covered up, and something had to be done. The flight back to Cairo from New York would be his last flight.
We go back many years together. But this will be your last flight to the United States.
He would not be flying to America anymore. Batuti had just had these big privileges taken away from him, and he was humiliated. So, I think that what happened was this. He must have said to himself, if this is going to be my last flight, it will be Khatem Rushdie's last flight also.
Certainly within various corporations where people bring weapons into the office and attempt to take revenge against people that they feel have aggrieved them. Perhaps Batuti felt that EgyptAir had been the cause of some of his issues, and unfortunately in this case it was the kind of office that was flying at 33,000 feet.
The FBI provides Taha's interviews to the NTSB. Egyptian officials asked for another EgyptAir pilot to be interviewed. Mohammed Badrawi had known El Batuti for 40 years. Interviewed at the NTSB, he described discussing with Captain Rushdie what to do about El Batuti's behavior.
Do you know if Khatem Rushdie was aware of the situation with Batuti?
Well, of course he knew. But he pretended not to know, I think, because Khatem Rushdie is the chief pilot.
Badrawi confirms that Khatem Rushdie is upset about El Batuti's harassment of women at the hotel. So Badrawi takes Rushdie's concerns to his old friend.
And if he didn't listen to you, what did you tell him was going to happen?
Nothing much, really. You see, he was on his way out. We don't normally touch people when they're approaching 60.
I know. I'm not saying that you are doing something wrong. They are saying that you're doing something wrong.
I know you are my friend.
We have a little patience, and then they're out.
Badrawi would ask Rushdie to be patient with his old friend, considering that El Batuti only had 3 months to go before retirement.
We've been in the Air Force for 40 years. All he needs is a few more months.
Badrawi's interview confirmed that Rushdie did believe El Batuti's behavior had to be dealt with, and he denied Taha's claim of a meeting between the two on the night of the crash. But Captain Taha was not done. He had another compelling story to add. In London, an Egyptian pilot has requested political asylum and is offering an insider's view of the most controversial tragedy in the history of EgyptAir. Captain Tahar revealed to the FBI how EgyptAir briefed its pilots about the crash.
When they had done the transcripts of the cockpit voice recorder, the EgyptAir Chief of Operations called all flight crew to a special meeting in Cairo and told us the facts. Just the facts. No commentary. No explanation of any technical problem. He did not say anything, but all we pilots realized that this was not an accident. And then he told us not to talk to anyone about it. Don't talk to your family. Don't talk on the phone. Don't talk to each other, he told us. All of us realized that Batuti had done this on purpose.
For the American families involved, this was a case of 216 murders and 1 suicide. In Egypt, big, close, extended families combine with a strong religious faith to deny that Egyptians commit suicide.
The story has many sides. It has to do with religion. It has to do with beliefs. It has to do with the culture. I think until today, still in the Egyptian culture, people don't believe that Muslims or that Egyptians or that people coming from that culture commit suicide.
Cultural differences were not the only impediments to this investigation.
One of the difficulties that we did have was that when we went over to Egypt and attempted to really get into his background, it became a very sensitive issue for the Egyptian government.
FBI efforts to learn about El Batuti's personal life and family relations would be stymied.
It became almost to the point where we were never really able to develop all the things that we needed to get at.
Finally, on March the 21st, 2002, after a nearly $10 million investigation over 2 years and 5 months, the NTSB publishes its report and determines that
the probable cause of the EgyptAir Flight 990 accident is the airplane's departure from normal cruise flight and subsequent impact with the Atlantic Ocean as a result of the Relief First Officer's flight control inputs.
The Egyptian Civil Aviation Authority responded angrily, and their response read in part,
"It is obvious that the NTSB has not done the type of professional accident investigation expected by the Egyptian government."
The NTSB's former director of aviation safety takes exception to the Egyptian view.
What was unprofessional was the insistence by the Egyptians, in the face of irrefutable evidence to anyone who knows anything about investigating airplane accidents and who knows anything about aerodynamics in airplanes, was the fact that this airplane was intentionally flown into the ocean. No scenario that the Egyptians came up with, or that we came up with, in which there were some sort of mechanical failure in the elevator control system would either match the flight profile or was a situation in which the airplane was not recoverable.
Like many of his countrymen, the loyal nephew cannot believe his uncle Gamil was a mass murderer.
This is a simple plane crash. It was put and made like this for no reason. It shows that it's a cover-up.
Greg Phillips takes pride in having thoroughly investigated every lead and every scenario.
When we sign on to be accident investigators, we do it with the idea that we're going to keep the next one from happening, not to cover up one that did because of whatever reason may be given to us. I've never known that to happen. I've never even known it to come close to happening.
There continue to be differing perspectives on the crash of EgyptAir Flight 990, and unanswered questions remain for broken and damaged families. For many of them, answers to how and why this plane crashed will forever be a painful mystery. freight train is out of control.
Get on the phone. Tell them we got a runaway train.
7551 to West Colton.
Its brakes can't hold it as it rockets down a mountain.
Mayday, Mayday. We're doing 90 miles an hour. 9-0.
Now thousands of tons of steel and freight are heading straight for a small town.
We're gonna die on that curve.
An innocent mistake risks the lives of everyone on board and many more in the town below.
3,000. We're not getting any oxygen. We have the terrain alarm. Aero Peru 603. We are in an emergency.
San Bernardino, California, a quiet suburban town at the foot of the San Gabriel Mountains. It's a great place to raise a family, in between the emptiness of the Mojave Desert and the bustle of Los Angeles.
When we had problems in the neighborhood, we could go to one another, and it was a very nice neighborhood.
But in 1989, San Bernardino is rocked by two disasters. 6 people are killed, 18 houses are completely destroyed. It begins with an out-of-control train.
60, 70, 80!
And ends with a raging fire.
You could see a huge cloud of black smoke in the air.
The scene looked like Dante's Inferno.
The disasters appear linked, but they happen more than a week apart. Investigators comb through the wreckage to find the hidden connection.
Help! Somebody help me!
They uncover a series of shocking decisions which have deadly consequences for some and scar a town forever. Early morning, May the 12th, 1989. On a railroad siding in the desert, a freight train waits to head up over California's San Gabriel Mountains. Frank Holland is the chief engineer for Southern Pacific Freight Train number 7551 East.
Well, my job as an engineer is to get on the train, operate the locomotives, obey the rules, speeds, slow down at restrictions, and get the train from point A to point B.
His work on this trip actually began the night before at the Mojave Rail Yard. Some of Southern Pacific's freight trains are put together here, picking up crews and engines to take them across the country. Holland is here to collect the paperwork he'll need for the journey.
Hey, Frank.
Holland was promoted to chief engineer 3 years before.
Okay, clearance form, train orders, train list, and tonnage profile.
His paperwork tells him he's hauling 69 freight cars, each one weighing 54,431 kilos. Holland also learns that the cars are all filled with the same thing, trona. It's a non-toxic chemical used in fertilizer.
So you start making your calculations on what kind of horsepower you're going to have to take that train down that hill. And that will tell you at what speed you can go.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Altogether, Holland's paperwork tells him he's hauling more than 3.5 million kilos of cargo, more than 10 jumbo jets. The cargo's final destination is South America. Today, Holland's only taking it as far as the West Colton terminal near Los Angeles. To do that, he'll have to haul the cargo up the San Gabriel Mountains and through the Cajon Pass. Then he'll carefully slow his huge train as it winds down the mountain.
Hey guys, we're going down to West Colton. We got 69 cars filled with trona.
Everett Crown is the conductor of 7551. He'll sit up in the front engine to assist Holland. Alan Reese is the brakeman this morning. He'll ride 2 engines back.
Okay, I'll be back in 3.
Between them, the 3 men have almost 50 years of experience working the trains with Southern Pacific. To make sure he has enough power to move his train up and down the mountain, Holland has asked for a little assistance. Southern Pacific dispatchers sent him 2 helper engines. Lawrence Hill is the engineer at the back. Robert Waterbury is his brakeman. While they've run this route before, it's not where they normally work. They don't know the weight of the cargo they're helping to haul, and they don't ask. 7551 East now has 4 engines up front and 2 behind. With the last 2 in place, the train is all set to go.
Helper calling head end.
Head end.
Coupled and ready to go.
Roger that.
.7551 East slowly gathers steam. In just an hour and a half, it'll reach the top of the mountains, the 1,300-meter-high Cajon Pass.
Helper to head end.
Head end.
We've cleared the siding.
Thank you.
On the other side of the mountains, the town of San Bernardino is slowly coming to life. The Muscoy section is a fairly new development on the northwestern edge of the town. It's filled with single-story homes and growing families. Christopher Shaw is waking up at 2326 Duffy Street. It's his mother's house, but after a fight with his girlfriend, he'd spent the night. Across the street, Ruth Green has succeeded in getting 3 children out of bed and off to school. Her only daughter, Lavon, is staying home.
It's just my daughter and I, and we're just making ready for what we considered a normal morning. We had had our breakfast and was straightening up in the kitchen.
One of the only things people don't like about this part of San Bernardino is the train tracks. Trains race by on top of a 6-meter-high levee. Some of the houses on Duffy Street back right up to the tracks.
When the homes went up for sale, the realtor was showing my husband a home that was on the same side of the street as the tracks. The tracks would have been behind our home, and he said no, he didn't want that.
Just after 7 a.m., 7551 East reaches the highest point of its trip, the Cajon Pass. It's all downhill from here. The pass is a vital rail link between Los Angeles and the rest of the world. It's one of only 3 ways to get through the mountains. Dozens of trains rumble through here every day.
Traditionally, in railroading, mountain railroaders are respected as the big guys, the tough guys, because they have the most demanding job. Cajon Pass is one of the toughest mountain passes for railroaders to deal with in the entire United States. So many trains go over it, and it is extremely demanding that everyone has to be on their toes 100% all the time.
No chance.
No?
No.
Engineer Frank Holland and conductor Everett Crown have the train right on time. There hasn't been any communication between the men at the front and the 2 men at the back of the train since the trip began. There's been no need. Everything's running smoothly. Now comes the most critical part of the journey, slowing the massive train as it starts down the mountain.
What we do when we run a train from the Mojave area to Colton is basically we drive it off a cliff. At that point, the track tips over and goes downhill at a very steep grade, 2.2%. And for trains, 2.2 feet down in every 100 feet is like falling off a cliff.
As 7551 East begins heading downhill, the crews still believe it's a normal run. What they don't know is that their train is already out of control, and they have no way to slow it down. May the 12th, 1989. Just after 7 in the morning, Southern Pacific Freight Train 7551 East begins the long, slow descent from the top of the San Gabriel Mountains. The massive train is hauling 69 cars full of freight. At the bottom of the hill, the sleepy town of San Bernardino, California. As the tracks start dipping downhill, engineer Frank Holland first applies his dynamic brakes. They slow each of the 6 engines, reducing the speed of the entire train. He's only allowed to go 48 kilometers an hour through the pass. He checks in with Lawrence Hill, the engineer in the helper engine at the back of the train, to make sure he can maintain his speed.
Calling the helper.
This is the helper.
You got all your dynamics?
Yeah, I'm in full.
Roger that.
The first part of the downhill run twists back and forth 56 times. The friction from the turns helps slow the mammoth train. Even with the turns, Holland starts applying his air brakes. They put pressure on the wheels of each freight car. The train is now traveling at 40 kilometers an hour. That's exactly where Holland wants it to stay. Once through the curves, though, Holland's brakeman Everett Crown notices that the train is picking up speed.
Frank, we're at 30. Should be at 25.
The train actually was maintaining its speed. It might have been picking up just a little bit, but we still had a long way to go.
It's creeping.
Confused, Holland continues to increase the pressure on the air brakes. But the train just keeps going faster.
By the time it reached 40 miles an hour, I was very concerned. The train was speeding.
As the train approaches 72 kilometers an hour, Holland turns his air brakes on full. But it doesn't help. At the bottom of the hill, the track bends around the town of San Bernardino. Frank Holland knows he's not supposed to go more than 64 kilometers an hour around the corner. Partway down the hill, he's already going much faster than that. Ruth Green's husband has left for work. Her 3 youngest children are off to school. Across the street, Chris Shaw is just about to take a shower. Engineer Frank Holland knows there are several houses that are right in the way if his train comes off the track.
I've been over that territory many times, and yeah, I knew that there was a curve coming down there that we weren't going to make.
At the back of the train, engineer Lawrence Hill also knows they're in trouble. The air brakes are turned on full, but the train isn't slowing down at all.
Something must be wrong up there.
Without talking to the front of the train, Hill slams on the train's emergency brakes. It's their last chance.
The train at that point tried to slow down a little bit. A couple seconds later, it was off to the races. It just took off like a rocket. The speed was going up so fast, I couldn't even believe it.
The emergency brakes haven't worked. Smoke begins pouring out from underneath the train, and it just keeps going faster.
60, 70, 80!
It stopped at 90 because that's as far as the speedometer would go.
But Holland knows 7551 East is still picking up speed.
I'm thinking, my God, I'm fired. Actually, that's what I thought. I'm just looking at everything that I've done. I'm trying to go back and see where I had made a mistake, what had happened.
7551 to West Colton. 7551 to West Colton.
We're trying to get a hold of the train dispatcher, and he won't answer.
The train is out of control, and they can't tell anyone about it.
At that point, we're just kind of out there by ourselves.
Try that phone again. 7551 to West Colton.
West Colton, go ahead.
We have a slight problem.
At the back of the train, engineer Lawrence Hill listens to the radio call.
I don't know if we can get this train stopped.
He breaks in, desperate to tell the dispatcher how dangerous the situation is.
Mayday, mayday! We're doing 90 miles an hour. 90! Out of control. Won't be able to stop till we hit Colton.
But there's nothing the dispatcher can do. The train is traveling at more than 160 kilometers an hour. The houses of San Bernardino are just seconds away. Down in the town, a strange rumbling breaks the morning calm.
My house began to vibrate. The house was rattling so hard, I would have thought that the windows would have broke. It just got worse and worse. By then, I realized it was the train.
As we were coming up to that curve, I looked over at Everett and I said,
"We're gonna die on that curve."
He wild-eyed, like he was just couldn't believe and just scared to death, and I'm sure I looked the same way. All I knew is that I just put my feet up there and I said, hang on, here we go. I never expected to survive.
West Colton. AGYM Saugus dispatcher, please come in. We're on the ground here between Dyke and Stover. Mayday! Mayday!
In the helper engine at the back of the train, engineer Lawrence Hill desperately calls the Southern Pacific dispatcher. Being at the end of the train has saved him from injury, but he's not sure everyone else has been so lucky.
SP7551, anybody please come in.
It takes more than a minute for Hill to get a response to his frantic call.
Saugus dispatcher, 7551 East, over.
Saugus dispatcher, we are all over the ground here. I haven't heard anything from the head end. They may need some assistance. We went on the ground.
Incredibly, engineer Frank Holland survives the wreck. The man in charge of the train crawls away from his ruined engine, the first of the cars to derail.
Everett, where's Everett? We gotta get him. He's still inside. Let's get you down first.
He's helped out of the train by eyewitnesses to the disaster.
When they pulled me off of the locomotive and set me down, it was just, I just couldn't believe it. The cars were just mangled, the locomotives were destroyed. It was just, you know, unbelievable devastation. I look back at that and I went, oh my God, what did I do?
Frank Holland has broken several ribs. One of his lungs is punctured. The man who was riding with him, Everett Crown, is soon found dead. As is Alan Reese, the brakeman who was riding in the third engine. Footage taken shortly after the crash shows the scale of the disaster. 7 houses have been destroyed. The train itself is a write-off.
As the dust cleared, then you could see some of the cars had, you know, toppled over. You could see that it looked like, you know, some houses were gone.
You could see just a twisted, jumbled mass of metal. These cars are turned over. You're really trying to grapple with, what is this? What's happened?
Alan Simpson is a battalion chief with the San Bernardino Fire Department.
The house that we focused on, with the information that the mother gave us about one individual, was totally obliterated. You wouldn't recognize it as a house. It looked like a jumble of somebody gone through it with a bulldozer.
They were hollering that there's somebody still in there. We later learned that that was where Chris Shaw lived. And when you looked at that house, it was like you'd say there was no way anybody could still be alive under all of that rubble and wreckage.
The wreckage is also hiding an explosive problem no one in the neighborhood knew about. Running alongside the railway, about 2 meters below the ground, is a pipeline carrying fuel back up the mountain. If it's been damaged in the derailment, a single spark could cause a major explosion.
Prior to this incident, we were not aware that this pipeline existed and ran directly behind our homes.
The thought's always in the back of your mind if you have something like that. This is major, 14-inch pipe full of pressurized fuel. We know what that's going to do if it ruptures.
The pipeline is operated by the Kalnev Pipeline Company. It pulls hundreds of barrels of fuel from the pipe, trying to reduce the size of any potential explosion. But much more fuel remains behind. Automatic safety valves in the pipeline that are supposed to shut off individual sections aren't working. The company can't completely drain the area under the derailment. Almost 3 hours after the crash, rescue workers find the body of a small child. He's the second young boy killed in the disaster.
Well, after we recovered the 2 children from the one house, there wasn't a lot of hope for finding anybody else at that point. But you never give up hope. You always keep trying.
But there's pressure to wind the search down. Every moment spent looking for Chris Shaw further delays the cleanup. And Kalnev can't check the pipeline properly until the rail cars are gone. An entire neighborhood holds its breath. Is there any chance Shaw could possibly have lived through the disaster? Southern Pacific Train 7551 East has crashed into San Bernardino, California. 4 people are dead, and an entire neighborhood has been evacuated. A gas pipeline under the wreck hasn't been checked yet. Chris Shaw was in one of the houses destroyed when the train derailed. 12 hours later, he's still missing. George Avery, a firefighter for less than a year, takes his shift at the crash site.
We were ordered to relieve the crews that were trying to search for a body. And at that time, they thought it was a body recovery.
Shaw is the last person in the neighborhood still to be accounted for. Workers ask his mother to draw a map of the house. She tells them her son was in the bathroom when the train derailed. Workers concentrate their final search effort there.
There's pieces of the house itself sticking out of this big potash mound. So you have studs and rafters and roof covering. So they gave me a specific area, so I started removing the product. And as I did so for, it seemed like an eternity, but it was probably an hour, hour and a half, this void occurred and started to reveal itself in front of me.
As Avery reaches into the opening, he feels something snag his jacket.
So then I immediately pulled it out, thinking it was caught on a nail or whatever. As I pulled it out and looked inside, I saw this hand waving in front.
I found him! I found him! Help! Somebody help me!
It takes workers nearly an hour and a half to pull Chris from the wreckage. Debris from the train had formed a protective cocoon around him. It gave Shaw air to breathe and kept the jagged metal from crushing him.
We were absolutely amazed that he lived, especially that long. We're talking about most of the day. Really didn't think he had much of a chance, so when he came up out of there, it was just stunning.
With Shaw's rescue, everyone in the neighborhood and on the train has been found. The wreck of 7551 East has killed 4 people, injured 4 more, and totally destroyed 7 houses. Even with Shaw's rescue, San Bernardino's troubles aren't over yet. If the Calnev pipeline has been damaged, it could explode at any time, destroying more homes and taking more lives. With that threat hanging over the neighborhood, the search for the cause of the derailment begins. William Pugh and Russell Quimby are with the National Transportation Safety Board.
By the time the team got there, it was fairly late and it was dark, and the scene looked like Dante's Inferno. A lot of wreckage, a lot of parts still, particularly the brake parts, wheels, red hot, still after 12 hours. Wheels had gotten so hot they'd literally expanded off the axles.
The friction between the wheels, the brakes, and the tracks was so intense that the wheels themselves began to liquefy, turning to molten steel as the train sped down the hill. Investigators know the train's brakes couldn't slow it down, but why? The next day, cleanup operations begin. Southern Pacific needs to clear its ruined train from the area. It's the only way investigators can work and Calnev can check its pipeline. Southern Pacific has all of the cars moved 2 days later, but the ground is still covered with 7551 East's cargo, hundreds of tons of trona. Calnev begins clearing the trona along the route of the pipeline. It's the quickest way to inspect the line, and it keeps the heavy equipment away.
They made 5 or 6 excavations down to the pipeline to visually look at the pipeline. They felt comfortable that nothing had penetrated to the depth of the pipeline.
The fuel is under incredible pressure. Any damage could lead to a massive leak and possible explosion. But Calnev finds nothing. The depth of the pipe has shielded it from the storm above. The pipeline is a vital source of gas for Las Vegas, almost 320 kilometers away. It supplies both civilian and military customers in the desert. There's pressure to get the gas moving again.
There were a number of people in the community that thought it should not be open, and supposedly people in Las Vegas had said that they had cars that were worth more than our homes on Duffy Street, and so fire up the pipeline.
Just 4 days after the derailment, the pipeline is restarted. Calnev watches for any drop in pressure. It would mean fuel was escaping, that there was a leak somewhere in the system. but it holds. The very same day, Southern Pacific finishes its repairs on the damaged railway. Trains are once again moving past San Bernardino. The cleanup isn't quite finished, though. More of the ash-like cargo of train 7551 East is littered across the area. Heavy machinery comes in to dig it up and haul it away. The huge machines could easily damage the pipeline, so it's carefully marked with stakes.
I told my husband one evening that I smelled gas, but we had been reassured that they had inspected this line and that there were no leaks.
I was at the accident site until it was finally cleaned up and there was a fence put around the area and secured. And it looked like everything was fine.
Early morning, May the 25th. It's been almost 2 weeks since 7551 East derailed, slamming into San Bernardino. But the cleanup was fast. For more than a week, the trains and the fuel in a pipeline below have been running smoothly. Then, from a clear sky, rain seems to fall. Large sections of the neighborhood are soaked by this peculiar shower. Ruth Green is back in her house when for the second time in a month, she's confronted with a horrifying sight.
To the left of me, as far as I could see up, down, or side to side, was nothing but a big wall of fire. I got to the front door, neighbors were screaming, "Get out, get out." I ran for my life.
Once again, the fire department responds to a major disaster on Duffy Street.
As we're getting the call and getting on the rig and opening the door, there was no doubt in my mind what that was. You could see a huge column of smoke and flame, and I knew immediately it had to be the pipeline.
A tower of smoke and flame reaches more than 100 meters into the sky.
Initially, when we got in there, we were so close that the plastic lenses on the front of the engine melted. Several of the turn signals, part of the red lights, melted. There is an intense noise coming from this pipeline where it had ruptured. It sounded like a jet engine. Deafening is how I would describe it. And we dealt with that all day long.
Local firefighters aren't the only ones called back to the scene.
I got a call, report to the chairman's office. I went down to the chairman's office, notified that the pipeline blew up, and that I should get my team together again.
The area looked more or less like a war zone, where a lot of damage, a lot of fire damage had been done. Houses in the area were incinerated.
Once again, Calnev, which runs the pipeline, can't shut its emergency valves. Almost 2 million liters of fuel burn for more than 7 hours. By the time the flames are out, 2 people are dead. 3 more are injured. Another 11 houses have been destroyed. The residents of San Bernardino are in shock.
They talked about the fact that one of the people that died, that all they really could find was their shoes that were left in one spot. And that, you know, the mental picture of that, it troubles you quite a bit.
After the fire, it was over for me. I couldn't see myself living in the house anymore. It really scared me just that bad.
What people here will soon learn is that all of the damage, pain, and suffering is the result of a simple, horrifying mistake. A small neighborhood in San Bernardino, California, has been devastated by 2 disasters. In just 13 days, a train derailment and a gas explosion have ripped through the area, killing 6 people. Investigators with the National Transportation Safety Board study both accidents. With the train crash, they focus on black boxes, which were recovered from 3 of the engines.
And that records distance, speed, throttle position, air brake pressures that we tried to figure out what speed the train eventually got to. It exceeded the graph.
The black boxes reveal that 7551 East had probably reached the incredible speed of 177 kilometers per hour before derailing. The speed limit on the curve was just over 60 kilometers an hour. Although the train's brakes had been applied, it continued accelerating. How had the train become so out of control?
Almost all accidents are a chain of events that link together to cause the accident. Of course, any one point, if you'd broken that link, the accident wouldn't have occurred.
Like other freight trains, 7551 East has 2 different systems to slow it down: dynamic brakes and air brakes. Air brakes push a block against the wheels of each freight car. The greater the pressure applied to the block, the slower the train goes. Investigators learned that the air brakes were working properly as the train started down the hill. As the train sped up, though, engineer Frank Holland maintained pressure on the air brakes. The heat created by the brakes became so intense that they melted. By the time of the crash, they were useless. The team turns its focus to the dynamic brakes. The dynamic brakes harness a magnetic field created by the engine's main generator. They reverse the magnetic field, which slows the axles on the locomotive. There were 4 engines at the front of the train and 2 at the back. Before beginning his trip, engineer Frank Holland knew that his second engine wasn't working at all, and that the dynamic brakes on his 4th engine were only working sporadically. Still, it was more than enough.
We figured that with the units that we had on the head end and the 2 helpers that they gave us later on, we could do 30 miles an hour down that grade with no problem.
When his train starts down the mountain, Holland has it under control. With the brakes he has, he should be able to hold his speed, but he can't.
Frank, we're at 30.
It should be at 25.
It's creeping.
What the NTSB investigators discover from the black boxes is stunning. The brakes on the 3rd engine at the front of the train didn't work at all as 7551 East gathered speed. During the trip, Holland had even checked with the brakeman in the 3rd engine.
Alan.
Yeah.
What are your dynamics like?
They're revving.
But the black boxes show investigators that even though the dynamic brakes were making the noise they usually make, they weren't working. They weren't helping slow the train down at all. But it gets worse.
Coupled and ready to go.
Roger
Of
that.
the 2 engines added to the back of the train, 1 didn't have any braking power either. Lawrence Hill, the engineer at the back, knew it, but he never told Frank Holland.
He didn't communicate to him that he had only 1 locomotive at a dynamic, the other one was out. The helper engineer thought that the dispatcher would notify the lead engineer.
Call in the helper. This is the helper. You got all your dynamics?
Yeah, I'm in full.
So when Holland asks Hill at the back of the train if he has all of his dynamics, Hill says yes. But he only means in the 1 engine. It's a startling discovery. Holland doesn't have anywhere near the braking power he thinks he does. Investigators studying the black boxes uncover one more secret of the train's terrifying ride down the mountain.
Something must be wrong up there.
When Lawrence Hill pulled the emergency brakes, he actually canceled out the dynamic brakes. It's a safety feature to keep the wheels from locking and the train from sliding down the tracks. In this case, with the air brakes melting, the dynamic brakes were the only thing holding the train back. Putting the emergency brakes on actually sped the train up.
When the emergency brakes are applied, what happens is you lose your dynamic braking and you've got a runaway train now.
But Pugh is still puzzled. According to all the paperwork, 7551 East was hauling 3.5 million kilos of cargo. At that weight, even with his crippled engines, Holland should have been able to hold his speed going down the mountain. To find out why he couldn't, investigators turned their attention to the days before the accident. "7551 East was pulling a shipment for Lake Minerals. 5 days before the trip began, the company's superintendent drops off the proper paperwork with Thomas Blair, who works for Southern Pacific. The paperwork outlines what's in the shipment and, normally, how much it weighs.
Thanks.
In this case, though, the weight was not filled in. Lake Minerals believed each of the cars was filled to its maximum, 90,000 kilos.
Hey! Hey!
Since that's what the company expected, Lake Minerals didn't think there was any reason to put the number down. But Blair knows that to fill out the proper computer forms, he'll need to have a weight, or the train won't be able to leave the train yard. Blair has been working with Southern Pacific for 17 years. He's seen thousands of freight cars leave his yard. He makes an educated guess that the material in each car on the train weighs 54,000 kilos. But Blair's guess is a tragic miscalculation. Every single freight car on 7551 East is actually carrying 36,000 kilos more material than he estimated. Across 69 cars, it means that the train is actually more than 6 jumbo jets, 2.5 million kilos heavier than anyone thinks it is.
Nobody caught the fact that the weights were way under.
Train orders, train list, and tonnage profile.
From then on, the engineer had a profile of the train that showed 6,100 ton.
I'll be back in 3. Okay.
He operated that way, and it was wrong. It was dramatically wrong. I mean, that was only 2/3 of the weight of that train.
That train was doomed, and we just didn't know it.
Frank Holland was in trouble before his trip began. Even if all of his engines were working, it would have been a difficult trip down the mountain. With all the problems he had, he simply didn't have the power to slow his enormous train down. Crashing into San Bernardino was all but inevitable from the beginning. The wreck of 7551 East was a preventable disaster. Investigators are about to discover that the explosion which followed didn't have to happen either. In May of 1989, twin disasters shatter the town of San Bernardino, California. A train derailment and a gas line explosion kill 6 people and destroy more than a dozen houses. Investigators comb through the ashes to learn how the two events are linked. The pipeline was 2 meters below ground. And in the days after the derailment, CalNev examined it closely. They couldn't find a single dent or crack where the train had broken through the earth. The train crash hadn't seemed to weaken the pipeline. And when gas began pumping through the pipe, there was no loss of pressure, no warning sign of a problem.
They started operating and brought it up to about 1,600 pounds, and all of the pressure readings at various places along the pipeline looked normal.
Since the derailment itself didn't cause the rupture, investigators continue their search. They study the pipeline for clues. Even though the fire burned for hours, the piece of pipe that burst has not been destroyed.
When the pipe opened up, it caused a rupture in the pipe that was sort of what we term as a fish mouth shape. And at the widest area, it was about 4 inches wide, and it was about 2.5 feet long.
Like forensic investigators, the NTSB looks for a telltale fingerprint that will help them discover how the pipe broke. Near the spot where the pipe ruptured, investigators find dents and several deeper gouges. The marks are like wounds on a murder victim. If investigators can find out what caused the marks, they'll discover what caused the pipeline to burst.
We knew that there were deposits of hardened steel left in the gouges. We knew that whatever piece of equipment had damaged the pipe had teeth on it that were hardened steel.
There are several possible suspects. A number of front-end loaders and one large backhoe used during the cleanup all had hardened steel teeth. But Batten can never pinpoint the blame.
Well, the NTSB determined that the damage to the pipeline was done during one of two phases, either the cleanup of the train wreckage or it was done during the time in which the trona was being cleaned up after the train wreckage had been removed.
Two mistakes resulted in a pair of disasters for San Bernardino and the death of 6 people. In its final report on the disasters, the NTSB doesn't blame Frank Holland, saying his belief that he had enough braking power to stop the train was perfectly reasonable. Holland still rides the rails, but he's never made the trip down the San Gabriel Mountains again.
Psychologically, I just don't think I could take it. I don't think I could relive that. Every time I went down, I would relive it. And I choose not to do that. It'd just be too painful.
Calnev, the company that operated the pipeline, was called to account for not checking it after the cleanup operations were completed. Lawsuits against the company were settled out of court.
Calnev, in hindsight, I think would agree that they should have been much more thorough in their inspection. They got comfortable with what they saw, and they made an assessment without adequate information that it was an undamaged pipeline and okay to operate.
Thomas Blair, who incorrectly filled in the paperwork, was never charged. But after the disaster, Southern Pacific changed its rules so that every freight car without a specified weight was assumed to be carrying its maximum allowable load. Southern Pacific also settled a number of lawsuits out of court. The company no longer exists. It was bought out years after the disaster. Trains continue to run past San Bernardino, but many of the families involved in the disaster moved away.
Trains were still coming down out of Cajon Pass. And so a person couldn't help but go in their mind go to where, what if that this thing could happen again?
Houses aren't allowed beside the tracks anymore. All that's left is an ugly scar of land. There's no monument here to mourn those who died, or to mark the day when disaster came to Duffy Street. A crippled airliner falls towards the Indian Ocean. It has no fuel, no engine power at all.
Both engines are out. That's it.
The captain struggles to do what no one has ever done before: safely land a passenger jet on the open ocean.
We're not getting any oxygen. We have the terrain alarm. Even Tower, Aero Peru 603. We are in an emergency.
The Comoros Islands, a remote holiday playground in the Indian Ocean. Days here are spent playing in the sand and splashing in the gentle waves. But in late 1996, the peace of the Comoros Islands is shattered. A plane is speeding towards the beach. It's a passenger jet hundreds of miles off course. There has been no explosion, no mechanical failure, yet the jet is falling out of the sky towards the ocean. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961 is on a routine trip from Addis Ababa to the Ivory Coast. The captain is Leul Abate. At 42, he's an extremely experienced pilot.
7,300 kilograms. Center tank is 0.
He has more than 11,000 hours of flying time to his credit.
Total fuel is 14,500 kilograms.
Check.
Ethiopian Flight 961 will stop briefly in Nairobi, Brazzaville, and Lagos before it reaches its final destination of Abidjan. The plane has just enough fuel for the first leg of the trip. It will get more in Nairobi. Less fuel on board makes the plane lighter, increasing efficiency.
Switches are off.
Captain Abate and his co-pilot, Jonas Makuria, expect their day's work will be over in about 12 hours when they land in the Ivory Coast.
All clear.
That day was a bright day, clear skies. Everything was fine.
The passengers on board 961 are a mix of Ethiopians and travelers from other countries flying for business and pleasure. Michael Adenyo, seated in economy class, is a Kenyan businessman on his way home to Nairobi.
I spent the whole of Friday trying to get on that flight, calling the airline every hour or so. I remember Friday night, about 11 o'clock, I called them again, and they said, look, just come to the airport, we'll see if we can find a seat for you. So I sometimes feel I put myself on that aircraft.
Near the front of the plane, American Frank Pancho Huddle is also getting settled in. He's the United States Consul General in Bombay.
My wife, Palm, and myself decided to take a trip to Africa and go on safari. I wanted a daytime flight because it was safer. So I picked Ethiopian Airlines, which had a good reputation. It was one of the 2 carriers in all of Africa that was FAA certified.
A few rows ahead of them is Mo Amin, a legendary news cameraman and journalist. He's a well-known personality, especially in Ethiopia. In 1984, Amin captured images which shocked the world. His pictures of the Ethiopian famine prompted an outpouring of aid, which helped pull Ethiopia back from the brink of starvation.
Mo Amin was, I think, the most famous news cameraman of his time, and also one of the strangest of characters.
Amin is known for never backing down in a fight. He has stuck his nose and his camera into conflicts across Africa. While filming in Ethiopia, he had even lost an arm in a bomb blast. Today, he's returning home to Nairobi after a brief business trip. By the time all the passengers are on board, Flight 961 is carrying 175 people. Not only is Captain Abate used to this route, but he's also very comfortable with this aircraft.
B1.
He and other members of Ethiopian Airlines call it Zulu. As the plane climbs into the sky, 3 Ethiopian men have settled into their seats. All are in their mid-20s. The plane is bound for Nairobi, but it's not where these passengers are planning to go.
We took off, everything was fine. The cabin crew called us, she asked if we want to have coffee or tea, whatever.
Yeah, thank you. Coffee? Make it 2.
The plane is flying at 12,000 meters when the 3 young Ethiopians make their move.
When I heard a noise at the back, somebody shouting, and when I looked back, he was running up towards the front, pushing the air hostesses away.
There were 2 guys zipping down the plane, yelling something incomprehensible. Then a guy sort of gliding down silently came right after him, and I said, uh-oh, it's a hijacking, because they're coordinated.
Initially, we sort of just looked at each other and wondered what was going on. People didn't say much immediately.
There was some kind of noise in the cabin, and I heard the cockpit door slamming open, just bang.
3 men barge through the door and arm themselves with the cockpit's fire axe and fire extinguisher.
Get out. Get out!
There was, a little confusion up in the front as if they were, attacking the pilots.
There were 3 guys, they were shouting. They came straight to the co-pilot and they started hitting him. Get up.
There's 11 of us. If you don't do what we say, we'll blow this plane out of the sky.
I told them, okay, don't hurt him. I'll do whatever you want.
Passengers near the front of the plane are concerned, but have no idea what's going on. Captain Leol Abate is facing the hijackers alone. Unlike most pilots, though, Abate has some experience in a situation like this. He has been hijacked twice before.
The first hijack was a local flight, and then 2 hijackers who had a hand grenade came into the cockpit, and they forced her to fly to Nairobi.
Abate's second hijacking was just a few years later, when he was piloting a 737.
The hijackers again held the hostess hostage, and they came into the cockpit. They told me it was hijacked, and they went to fly to Sweden.
No one had been hurt or killed in either of those incidents. In both cases, Captain Abate had landed safely. But the turbulent political situation in the region means hijacking is an unpleasant reality. From 1990 to 1996, 10 Ethiopian Airlines planes had been hijacked. This time, though, the hijackers make a very unusual request.
Fly to Australia.
What?
Fly us to Australia.
We don't have enough fuel to get to Australia. It's too far. We can go to Nairobi, or Zanzibar, or Dar es Salaam, and then refuel, and then go to Australia.
In fact, the jet took off with just 3.5 hours worth of fuel. But the hijackers don't know that. They've been reading the in-flight magazine, which tells them the maximum flying time of a 767.
11 hours. It won't take more than 10 hours to get to Australia.
We don't have 10 hours of fuel.
It says 11 hours.
We don't carry that much fuel. We only carry what we need.
They thought I was bluffing, They were convinced that the airplane was able to fly to Australia.
Abate is shocked. No one else on the plane knows what the hijackers are demanding. If he does what they say, his plane will crash in the ocean. If he doesn't, they say they'll blow it out of the sky. An Ethiopian Airlines jet has been hijacked in the skies above Africa. The hijackers want to be flown to Australia. It's a 10-hour flight, but the plane took off with just 3.5 hours of fuel. The passengers have no idea what the hijackers are demanding. Word spreads of the hijacking, but not of their destination. Flight attendants feed some of the children on board and keep working as best they can.
We started to ask the stewards what was going on, and they indicated that there was a hijacking.
Nervous and uncertain, passengers wait to see what happens next.
It was as if nobody wanted to sort of rile the hijackers because they hadn't slapped people around. It wasn't a sort of a Middle Eastern style where they shoot somebody in the head to make a point, or they were basically leaving the passengers alone, provided that we didn't do anything. And that was enough for us.
So much fuel we have. If we had fuel for 11 hours, it would say 60,000 kilograms. But we don't carry that much fuel. We only carry what we need.
The hijackers seem to think that Abate is bluffing.
We have a bomb! Yes. If you don't do what we tell you to, we will blow this plane out of the sky.
Abate knows he's trapped. If he fights the hijackers, they may blow up his plane. If he does what they want, he'll run out of fuel.
My feeling tells me that it's not a real bomb, but there is no way that I can challenge that. One of them has a fire axe. That was good enough to do serious damage. You know, if I'm not alive, everybody's not alive. That's it.
I want to talk to the passengers.
After about half an hour, the hijackers came on the public address system, and they made an announcement that they have taken over the plane. And if anybody tried anything, they had one bomb and they were going to blow it up.
The announcement is made in Amharic, French, and English.
The policy at that time was we should follow the hijackers' instruction. That was before 9/11. And every action taken is to be taken on ground, not in flight. Pilots are trained to fly, not to fight.
We were following sort of the standard script, as it were, for passengers, which was to stay out of it, keep quiet, keep cool, let them sort it out, get the plane on the ground.
Some people said, oh, maybe we'll go to Sudan, land there, negotiate, and maybe they'll release us after that, or if not, move on to some other place. But it was all speculation.
For years, Clint Van Zandt was the FBI's chief hostage negotiator.
What made this hijacking so unique is that the pilot in command had been the victim of 2 previous hijackings. His success rate was 100%. He probably had a predisposition to, this will end like the other 2 did. I'll be able to get it on the ground, the authorities will deal with it.
But Captain Abate knows this situation is different. Instead of another destination in Africa, the hijackers want to go to Australia. Abate knows that heading out into the open ocean could be a death sentence. Captain Abate decides to get help.
I have to call air traffic control.
Why?
Because they will be asking why we are changing direction.
Tell them you've been hijacked, and tell them where we are going.
Addis area control. This is Ethiopian.
Since the plane is still over Ethiopia, Abate contacts Addis Ababa area control.
Addis, Ethiopian 961. There are passengers in the cockpit.
Say again, 961?
Addis 961. We have been hijacked. We have orders to divert to Australia.
961, Australia, understood. Confirm your souls on board?
Souls on board 175.
961, 175 souls on board.
As the aircraft flies south, Addis Ababa passes the captain over to Nairobi air traffic control.
ETH Nairobi Center. Confirm you are going to land Australia.
Gentlemen, we can't make Australia. We only have 2 hours of fuel. We can't make it Australia. We will make a water landing.
ETH 961. Confirm you can't divert to Mombasa.
They refuse to land anywhere other than Australia, so we have no choice. Except when we finish our fuel, we will land on water.
But with 2 hours of fuel, you can't make Australia. Why don't you land Mombasa?
Okay, just a minute.
Abate connects the air traffic control to the cockpit speakers.
Okay, I just wanted our hijackers to hear what you are communicating.
Okay.
And if you have anything to say, go ahead and tell them.
Okay. I am advising you that with 2 hours of fuel, you will be unable to reach your destination. And probably you would have to land on the water. The solution is for you to land in Mombasa. Go ahead. The hijackers of ETH 961. If you have copied, go ahead.
Waiting to talk, stand by. Do you want to talk to them? Okay, they say they don't want to talk. They're not willing to negotiate on any terms.
Confirm they are ready to land in the ocean and drown. Do you have another alternate aerodrome? Please advise.
I have no alternate aerodrome. Sir, I'm in a very tight corner.
Enough talk. We will not negotiate. That's bullshit. That's bullshit.
They said follow our instruction. If you don't, we'll blow the airplane up. That's it.
Ethiopian 961, Nairobi Control, do you read?
There would be no further communications between the aircraft and air traffic control. An hour has passed since the beginning of the hijacking. No one knows exactly what's going on in the cockpit. For the rest of the passengers and crew, the flight has settled into an uneasy routine.
There's a lot of time people were just whispering, and we were trying to figure out where we're going, where they're taking us, what's going to happen. And at least the people I was sitting next to, we thought that we would go from airport to airport, and there would be negotiations, and finally we would be released.
We went generally south, and there was an eerie, edgy, nervous calm. Nobody's talking much, and people are in their own little individual worlds.
With only a fraction of the fuel needed to get to Australia, Abate decides to defy the hijackers. Without their knowledge, he continues south instead of east towards Australia.
I started following the African coastline because in case anything happens, we'll have a place to ditch or land safely because most of the cities are by the coastline.
But with a glance out of the window, the hijackers suddenly realize they've been tricked.
I still see land. Turn the plane!
Now Captain Abate has no choice. He turns his plane east over the open ocean. As the ocean unfolds below him, the captain begins forming another plan.
I had no chart nearby because it was on the co-pilot side. So I had a small atlas. So I took out that atlas and I saw the Comoros Island.
Nestled between the African continent and the island of Madagascar is their only hope, the Comoros Islands. A remote holiday playground in the Indian Ocean.
I had no idea what that place was. I never heard of the word Comoros before. I just headed towards it. It was a guess.
The Comoros Islands are his last chance to land safely.
We just sat and sat for hours. I tried to read the newspaper, but couldn't concentrate on it because I was nervous. I wondered how much extra fuel we had, because the rule of thumb is you have enough for the alternative airport, and then they're supposed to have an extra 45 minutes of fuel beyond that. So roughly 3 hours or so of fuel they had to have. And so after we'd flown 3 hours, I began to get nervous.
Suddenly, an alarm breaks the tense silence in the cockpit. It's a warning that the plane has less than 30 minutes of fuel left.
I need to tell the passengers.
There's no need.
You know what I'm going to tell them? It's out of my control. The aircraft is going to crash.
You wanna die?
We're gonna die anyway.
So, shall we kill you? No more talking. Don't worry, I have the axe.
Please. At least let us attempt a controlled landing.
I will die along with him. I will show him that I have guts. It's finished. We will die together.
With almost no fuel, Abate decides to make his stand.
We came over the island. By then, fuel was running out. I decided, no, we should not go any further than this one. And I started circling that area.
But how can he convince the hijackers to let him land? He'll have to find an answer soon, or Flight 961 will crash into the sea. For 3 hours, Captain Leul Abate has been fighting a lonely battle. Hijackers have taken over his passenger jet. They want to be flown to Australia, but Abate doesn't have enough fuel. Warning alarms are already beginning to sound. An airport on the Comoros Islands is within reach, but the hijackers refuse to negotiate and won't let him land. At stake, the lives of all 175 people on board.
They took whiskey from the duty-free, and they wanted me to drink, actually, but I refused.
Once again, alarms sound. One engine is now completely out of fuel. It's shutting down. Captain Abate is quickly running out of time.
With the airplane being at 39,000 feet in cruise flight, the airplane is not going to run out of gas with each engine simultaneously. There'll probably be a bit of a lag, which in this case there was. The right engine stopped functioning first.
First thing I noticed, the engines sound different. Because there's only one engine running. It had a much deeper sound.
Abate follows standard emergency procedures. He starts the APU, or Auxiliary Power Unit. It's a generator that can supply extra electrical power when one engine is lost. Most of the passengers don't know how serious the situation is. But Captain Abate knows the plane is in grave danger.
I lost the engine at 39,000 feet. I cannot keep on flying at 39,000 feet with engine failure.
With thrust from only one engine, the aircraft immediately slows down. At a lower speed, the wings don't provide as much lift. Abate must descend to an altitude where the air is thicker. Denser air means the wings can provide enough lift to keep the aircraft flying level. The plane continues to descend. Even with only one engine, and despite the drop in altitude, the tiny Comoros Islands are still within reach of the crippled airliner. There is an airport at the capital, Moroni. If he can convince the hijackers, Abate could land there.
It's gone down 1,000.
When the engine stops, it descends. It will descend whether you like it or not.
Alone in the cockpit, Captain Abate takes a dangerous chance. He explains the situation to everyone on board.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your pilot. We have run out of fuel, and we are losing an engine at this time. We're going to make a crash landing.
When the pilot came onto the public address system and said that he had no alternative but to crash land, that is when it actually dawned on us and we realized that this was a life and death situation.
Captain Abate also makes a desperate call for help.
We have already lost one of the engines.
He wants the passengers to overpower the hijackers so he can land the plane.
I ask all passengers to react to the hijackers. Thank you.
Captain Abate knows the call for help is a huge risk.
Even though I was expecting some kind of movement in the cabin, But I had to do my job. I was doing what I had to do. You know, keep the airplane in control, fly it.
While Captain Abate waits for action, the passengers are more confused than ever.
He said, react against the hijackers, which is an odd phraseology. Nobody reacted. I think part of it was the way he said it. It was not sort of a normal way in English that you would ask someone to take on the hijackers. But he also was trying to do it enough so they wouldn't notice what he was saying.
At least one of the passengers does understand. As a news cameraman, Mo Amin has never shied away from a challenge. Amin makes his way to the economy section in the rear of the plane.
Here is a man who had spent 20 or 30 years in some of the most difficult and dangerous war zones of the world, who'd been beaten up, who'd been shot at, who'd been jailed. He was a kind of alpha male, if you know what I mean. He could talk anybody into anything.
He made it like he was going to the bathroom, and then he came back and he started talking to people who were 3 or 4 seats ahead of me. And from his gestures and actions, he was trying to get us to stand up against the hijackers.
With your help, we can take them. There's only 3 of them. Come on. Come on.
Not knowing what would happen, not knowing what these people were capable of doing. And, of course, the fact that they had indicated that they would blow up the plane if anybody tried anything.
Always, always have to measure, am I going to make the situation better or am I going to make it worse? Who's ready to take the chance that your precipitous action against the hijacker might not cause him to set that explosive device off and take the life of everybody on board the plane?
In the end, the passengers choose not to act. Captain Abate is still alone against the hijackers. In the cockpit, the hijackers tried to take control in a vain attempt to keep the plane in the air.
It's descending.
Don't worry. I'm not the one who's doing that.
Inadvertently, one of the hijackers disconnects the autopilot. The plane swerves wildly.
Don't move! Listen! I am not applying any motion. The aircraft is doing it by itself.
He was trying to fly the airplane, he was trying to disconnect the autopilot, all sorts of things.
It's all over. We will drop in the ocean.
31?
Abate makes another attempt to explain the desperate situation to the hijackers. Perhaps they will finally allow him to land at the nearby airport.
This is 0, and this is coming to 0.
I prayed to God. I wish I wasn't in this situation. Now I'm in it, but help me to save these people.
Ladies and gentlemen, please sit down and fasten your seatbelts. Do not panic. Please
I was starting to say, oh, I love you, dear, it's been a good ride. My wife is sort of unsentimental, psychiatric nurse, and she tells me, get up, stand up, get our bag down from the overhead, pull out your extra glasses, put them in your pocket, and get some food from me, and I want this, this, and this from food. She had carefully picked things that wouldn't make her thirsty. She said, there's not going to be any meal service once we hit the water.
Finally, the plane runs out of fuel.
So you're killing everyone? That is all. Sit down. From now on, you can't do anything to me. What? From now on, you can do nothing to me.
The other engine stopped, and it sort of went quiet. Then it started to get hot within the cabin. The light started to flicker, and gradually it went out.
That's it. Both engines are out. That's it. Is this what you wanted?
This $40 million aircraft has become a 100-ton glider. The plane is out of fuel, and Abate is out of options. A crash landing in the sea is all but inevitable.
Both engines are out. That's it. Is this what you wanted?
Almost 4 hours after takeoff, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961 has finally run out of fuel. Hijackers have taken over the plane and have forced the captain to fly over the ocean. The loss of engine power starts rippling through the plane. As well as driving the jet through the skies, the engines supply power to most of the electrical and hydraulic systems. Without the engines, the computer screens, automatic pilot, and many other functions of the plane stop working. Although the engines are now useless, a low-tech backup system allows the pilot to retain some control. The ram air turbine, or RAT, is the last line of defense when all the engines fail. A small trapdoor automatically opens, and the turbine, a small propeller, pops out. The rushing air turns the propeller like a windmill, generating just enough electrical power for basic flight instruments and controls, including airspeed.
Since it was power off, that means there was no electrical or hydraulic power. The controls were heavy.
The turbine doesn't provide enough power for Abate to operate the flaps, which would help slow the plane down for landing. Wherever he lands, Captain Abate will have to do so at a dangerously high speed.
Power of landing, the power of ditching, nobody's trained in the world. Flying over the water, you need accurate instruments. I didn't have any of the instruments.
Without engines, a large passenger jet can glide 18.5 kilometers for every 1,000 meters of altitude it loses. At 6,400 meters, the Ethiopian Airlines plane can travel for nearly 120 kilometers before it hits the ground.
One of the things that the captain's got to worry about now is with both engines shut down, the airplane's going to go down. It's just a matter of where, and that's going to be controlled by the pilot flying.
It's an extremely dangerous situation few pilots in the world have ever faced. In 1983, another 767 pilot found himself in a similar predicament. Air Canada Flight 143 ran out of fuel and landed on an abandoned Air Force base, sustaining only minor damage. In the right circumstances, a safe landing without power is possible. Captain Abate hopes to land at the airport in the Comoros Islands, but struggling against the hijackers on the final turn, he loses his bearings and cannot visually locate the runway.
I was within the vicinity of the airport, so I was keeping the airport in my sight all the time. Then through the struggle, I lost my position. I lost where I was.
In the critical seconds it takes to find the airport again, he loses too much altitude and doesn't know if he can make it to a runway. A water landing is now his only option.
He knew that he was going to have to ditch the airplane. He was going to have to put the airplane down in the water. How he was going to do that was now a different plan because he'd never been trained to do that, not with two engines out.
Landing on the ocean is even more dangerous than bringing a plane down on the ground.
If you were trying to crash land on the ground, the airplane would have a surface to slide across. That surface does not exist when you're ditching the airplane in water. The airplane is going to touch down on the water, and then at some point it's going to dig in to that water. When that happens, the airplane's going to try to stop instantly.
In trying to bring his plane down safely, Abate faces unique challenges. Planes such as the DC-9 have flat bottoms which would skim the surface of the ocean on landing, slowing down more smoothly. But the engines on Abate's 767 hang below the body. They could act as enormous scoops, grabbing hold of the water as the rest of the plane plows ahead. The force will tear the jet apart.
It was getting hotter and hotter, so we started to sweat because I guess the air conditioning system was not working since there was no power. And that's when people started to scream, started to panic, looking for life jackets, praying to Jesus, praying to Allah. Some ladies were asking people to go and plead with the hijackers not realizing that it wouldn't make any difference at this particular time. We didn't have any fuel, and that was it. We're going down, but I guess at that time, you know, your hope is all you have.
We're descending fairly rapidly. The plane is lurching wildly a couple of times. They're fighting up in the cockpit for the controls.
It's my responsibility. The passengers must know what's going on.
Descend and increase the speed.
It doesn't make any difference. Please. All the same, we're going to die. Please maintain calm. Prepare for an emergency landing. Put on your life jackets, but do not inflate them.
Some passengers either don't hear the captain's instructions or decide to ignore them. They inflate their life jackets.
I heard a pop, 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 pop back in the tourist class. And everybody panicked and inflated their life jackets. I actually got up on my seat and told people, don't inflate your life jackets inside the plane.
At the front of the plane, Mo Amin tries a last-ditch attempt to negotiate with the hijackers.
No, sit down. Mo had a desire to dominate every situation he was in. In a situation like that, it would be Mo talking to the hijackers. He would be negotiating with the hijackers. He would be, I'm sure, trying to get the other passengers to face these guys down.
But Amin's efforts have no effect. The hijackers are determined to let the aircraft crash. Then, for the first time since the hijacking began, Captain Abate gets some help.
The controls. I need help. They're too heavy.
We told them, guys, now we are on the last point. We should sit down and fasten your seatbelts. They refused. I never thought I would ditch in my lifetime. I never thought I would lose 2 engines and ditch in the middle of an ocean. I never thought anything would like that happen in my life.
Last few seconds, I remember looking out both sides of the window. I could see water. And then I took the crash landing position. All these things go through your mind. I guess having been brought up in a Christian family, I said my last prayers and said, well, if there is heaven, I hope I get out on the right side of things.
Outside in the window, you could see land at the last minute. And we realized that we were, for the first time, that we were near land, but over water.
I used to love that airplane. We used to call it Zulu. In my heart, I was talking to it. So I said, Zulu, you can make it. Now you should be able to make it. I know you'll make it. You know, I was talking to it.
On the beach, tourists are stunned. The horror of the crash is captured on one of their video cameras. The plane is flying at more than 370 kilometers per hour when it hits the water.
First bump, fairly gentle. And I sort of breathed a sigh of relief. Wow.
As soon as we touched the water, it was quite violent.
Then the second bump was like a 30-mile-an-hour auto accident.
I had a feeling the plane was not going to hold.
The third bump, and I said, uh-oh, I'm dead. And I blacked out.
Oh my God! Oh no!
The ditching was very rough. The aircraft broke apart into 3 pieces.
The cockpit broke off and the tail end broke off, so we started to go down. There was water gushing in on both sides.
Passengers who survived the initial impact struggle to escape from the shattered wreckage. As water pours in, people who've already inflated their life jackets become trapped. The water pushes them towards the ceiling of the plane.
In that kind of panic, people do all sorts of things that maybe are not rational.
The life jackets make it very difficult to swim underwater. Many passengers can't escape the sinking cabin.
The aircraft was full of water. I have no fear of water, having done competitive swimming in school. And I went for my seatbelt, and I couldn't find it buckled. So I moved my hand down to my knee and found it, pulled it open, and I pushed out. And I looked at the back of the aircraft. I could see some light at the end, and I decided to swim out in that direction. As I swam out, one of the passengers trying to get out of the seat grabbed my leg. And I said to myself, oh my God, this can cause me to drown. But I decided not to fight back. And they pulled themselves out and let go of my leg. And then I continued to swim out to the back of the aircraft and swam to the surface. I was really exhausted. I felt very tired. And I looked up. I said, okay, could this be heaven? Because I wasn't really sure whether I was alive or dead.
I was trying to tell the co-pilot to get out. Then he was not there. Then I said, okay, then it's about time for me to go out.
I woke up, was floating in the water, and I went, hey, I'm alive. I looked for my wife who'd been sitting on my right, and she was gone. My heart sank. Then I looked to my left, and she was now on my left. She had swirled around and swapped. We were out floating in the ocean. You can see what looks like an uninhabited cliff. It might be a tropical island. It's like a movie, you know.
When I leveled out and looked at sea level, I saw all these boats, these tourist boats, beautiful sails and all that, and I said, I must still be on Earth. When I looked around me, I could see all these people, life jackets and bits and pieces of debris, broken seats, floating bodies. As I swam towards the beach, I saw this passport, which was a Kenyan passport. And I stopped and opened the passport, and believe it or not, it was mine. So I took the passport and folded it and put it in my pocket and continued to swim.
Odenyo makes his way to a floating pallet of cargo that's burst loose from the plane. He pulls himself on top and waits for rescue. The plane was destroyed, ripped into several pieces.
I saw things scattered around me, the tail of the airplane far away from me. I never expected something like would happen. All I was expecting was to evacuate the passengers safely and myself.
Abate swims to safety, but he has no idea how successful he's been. He doesn't know whether any of his passengers have survived or what's happened to the hijackers. After a 4-hour struggle with hijackers, Captain Leul Abate crash lands his passenger jet in the Indian Ocean near the Comoros Islands.
Oh my God!
His plane is shattered, but his skill may have saved the lives of many on board. For those who survived the crash, Abate's decision to ditch the plane near the shore means that although the airliner breaks into pieces, it doesn't sink very far.
Fortunately, the water was very shallow. In some cases, people were able to get out.
Locals and tourists swarm out to the downed aircraft. A group of scuba divers, who narrowly missed being hit by the aircraft, help with the rescue effort. In an amazing stroke of good luck, some French doctors are staying at the resort. They offer immediate medical assistance. In the end, of the 175 people on board the plane, 50 survive. Without the actions of Abate, many more could have died. Without power and unable to use his flaps, Captain Abate lands at 370 kilometers per hour, over 100 kilometers per hour above the normal landing speed of a 767.
Once the captain made the decision that he had to ditch, the best thing that he could do was keep the airplane as close to land as possible.
Abate also tried to make the landing as smooth as possible. At the last moment, he turned the jet, hoping to land parallel to the waves instead of crashing into them. As soon as the plane hit the water, it was ripped out of Abate's control.
The airplane touched down left wing low, so the left wing actually grabbed the water.
The 767's massive, low-slung engine dug into the water, spinning the plane around.
The airplane would have wanted to turn around that left wing or cartwheel. That's a lot of energy to dissipate very quickly. That's what caused the breakup sequence. The airplane broke up into 4 or 5 pieces, and that's what caused a lot of the fatalities.
Panic may also have contributed to the number of deaths. Disregarding Abate's instructions, many passengers inflated their life jackets.
The life vest wants to keep you buoyant or try to drive you straight up, and that could hamper and restrict your ability to get out of your seat. In some cases, people were still strapped in their seat when the airplane sank, and they unfortunately drowned.
Mo Amin, who had tried to rally the passengers against the hijackers, was standing up when the plane crashed. He was probably thrown against a bulkhead when the plane crashed, dying instantly.
Mo had survived everything. He had more than 9 lives. And the idea that he should just be on an ordinary standard flight, when the kind of news story that he wasn't aware of, hadn't been assigned to, caught up with him, and to be killed in this way, has a kind of horrid irony about it.
The hijackers, who refused to sit for the landing, also died in the crash. In the days after the disaster, other pieces of the puzzle became clearer. Despite claims by the hijackers that there were 11 of them, in fact, there were only 3. But who were these desperate men, and what were their motives?
They were imprisoned, thrown in jail, persecuted and tortured by the government. They didn't specify which government, at least to the best of my understanding, and that they had escaped from jail and that they were going to make history.
They said they have friends in Australia and they want to get united with them. They wanted to go into a second country where they get the refugee status and have a better living.
Before 9/11, it was remarkably easy for hijackers to gain access to pilots.
If you don't do what we say, we'll blow this plane out of the sky.
Despite numerous hijackings over the previous 2 decades, most airlines made no attempt to secure the cockpit.
Do you want to die?
We're gonna die anyway.
So, shall we kill you?
The hijackers of Flight 961 were never linked to any terrorist group or political organization. Whatever their reasons, their crime demonstrated the great danger posed by a hijacker who places no value on his own life.
We will die together.
For years, there were people in security saying we have to strengthen that cockpit door. We have to be able to exclude anyone from coming through that door and getting control of that aircraft, whatever the reason. Whether the airlines didn't want to spend the money, they didn't see it as a threat. It didn't happen. After 9/11, every aircraft now has done that carries passengers, that has that capability of being hijacked.
Nothing is inevitable. Nobody is immune to anything. It could be 1 in a million, but it can happen.
Both Captain Leul Abate and his co-pilot, Jonas Mercuria, received many tributes for their actions on Flight 961, including a Flight Safety Foundation award.
I said, it's good that I am alive, and the world has understood what I had gone through.
Despite their ordeal, both Captain Abate and his co-pilot Mercuria continue to work for Ethiopian Airlines.